Hello again, and welcome to our tutorial on using the Liquify set of tools to do a little bit of streamlining on this portrait. So this is not a case of necessarily altering biology or someone's physical weight or whatever other optical illusions that Photoshop can sometimes be accused of, but in this case we're looking at a jacket that is maybe not quite so tailored to the subject. So if you look in the little diamond portion here with a hand on her hip, we got a kind of a bulgy clothing situation happening here. So this could be a very common use of the Liquify tool. You know, suit jackets are great, but when things aren't perfect, it's nice to kind of just clean that up. So anywho, so first thing we are going to do is we're going to make a copy of our background layer. We always like to leave our background alone. Liquify. And so if we're going to use Liquify, it should usually be one of the first things that you do in your retouch, because this essentially becomes your new background layer. There's no going back and splitting the difference with your background layer or whatnot. So now let us go to the filter menu and then choose Liquify down here. Okie doke. That's okay. So here we are. So Adobe have added a ton of different functions, all sorts of automated tools. We've got all these face-aware Liquify options and so on. So that's well and good. But once upon a time, all we really had were the tools here on the left side. So, and these do, you know, what the sliders do over here are pretty much duplicated. You know, they're faster but less control versus this is the slower, more deliberate approach here. So we've got our forward warp tool, keyboard shortcut W. So this is a brush tool, so our square bracket keys work. Okay, so and this will be important when you're doing your warping. I always advise using as large a brush radius as you can get away with. Otherwise, you can kind of create some unwanted ripples and so on. So you can actually make it worse than when you started out with. And what else we got here? So if things go too far, you got your reconstruction tool. So you can start actually painting and watching your effect kind of erase itself if you want. And smooth tool, similar to the reconstruct tool. Twirl clockwise tool, I don't know when you're going to have a function there. The bloat tool, the pucker tool, that's a little bit advanced, but they've got their uses. And push left tool, that's also a bit specialized. And then we got freeze mask and thaw mask. So these are just masking options. So freeze mask tool is essentially you're freezing portions of your picture. Sometimes when we use this like super large brush radius, it can take away, you know, it can affect other areas of the photo that you don't want to. So the answer is not to do a smaller brush for more detail, because then you turn your edges into lasagna noodles. So you pre-freeze area in question, and then sometimes you need to take away that mask, and there you have the thaw tool as well. So, and face tool, if you have group photos, you can use the face tool to isolate specific faces, which you can then use the automated tools over here. And then woohoo, we got the hand tool and the zoom tool. So first things first, I'm going to click on show mask on the right side of the screen here, and F for freeze tool. We're going to isolate the hand. I'm a little overbrushing a little bit. Find sometimes you don't want to hug the exact edges, because Photoshop kind of takes those pixels along for the ride sometimes. Okay, so protecting that over here. That should be good. And now W for warp tool. And then now you can get it away with like a really large radius depending. And we start to just push that in. So the bigger the brush radius, the less ripple you're going to get, kind of the cleaner. You know, it depends though. Each picture can have its own set of rules. Oh, you can see here, even though I froze it, you can see there's a little collateral effect over here. So R for the reconstruct tool, and we'll just kind of undo that effect there. Okay, and if you want to know how Liquify works, if you click on the show mesh option here, so this is like a mesh overlay of what's going on with your photo, and you can see the mesh gets kind of tighter here. So this is what kind of the underlying framework of how the Liquify tool works, but let's turn that off. Show mesh overlay, which is not disappearing for some reason. Come on. Okay, it's not turning off. We're going ahead with the tutorial anyway. Okay, so what we want to do now is do a little bit of a tucking in on the sleeve as well. So D for thaw, we need to basically unfreeze. So we'll take that off. Over here, if you want to be really meticulous, you could, protect this area now. Although basically the warp tool that we're going to use is going to be on the smaller side. And we're going to zoom in a touch. So I'm using the keyboard shortcut of spacebar command. Okay, so I got the warp tool, so much smaller this time. And we're just going to kind of tweak those bumps. So it stands to reason that if the jacket was too big for the torso area, maybe the sleeves were a little long as well. And just kind of fix those bumps. And you can see the mesh happening here that is being warped. So I'm going to do Command 0 to zoom out. And yeah, it's gonna call that reasonable. Turn off our mask visibility, just to get an idea what we're doing. And then we click OK to commit our changes. And then you can see what was before. And again, so just kind of streamlined. Still, we don't have perfect, smooth lines. This is, you want to keep some semblance of reality. But this essentially now becomes your new starting layer. Okay. And yeah, that's about it. But the applications for Liquify are many and varied, but this is kind of just an everyday realistic application that won't get you in too much trouble with your subject and so on, and might even win you some favors. And that is it for now.